Hey guys, Mike here. So sorry I missed yesterday, but I had an opportunity to take my son to Monday Night Football with some friends, and so I had to take that opportunity. So that was a blast for us, even though my son was heartbroken because his Chiefs lost at the last minute. But it was a heck of a game, and congratulations to the Jaguars for pulling that one out. And boy, the drive was long, so we didn't get home till 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was a rough one, but, it's all about making memories. So, I wanted him to get to experience that with his team and everything. So, sorry about that. So today we will talk about AMD. We'll talk about the OpenAI contract, so to speak, but also talk about OpenAI in general. It's kind of funny. There's all these memes coming out and what you're seeing in the AI circle with money shifting hands and how these deals are done and everything. And it's some stuff I didn't even really know or anything like that, because OpenAI is not a publicly traded company or anything right now, even though they have a huge valuation. We'll get into Tesla. They had their rollout today. Obviously, people are like, interesting. And then, of course, we'll get into others like PayPal, which one of you guys had asked probably 2 weeks ago in a Saturday video, and we covered it. And my whole line was, when we covered the chart, was, let it prove itself to you. Look at where the 200 was at. Look at that 4-year trend line. Like, let it prove itself to you. Okay, so maybe we're at that moment. And a lot of members are asking about this too. So, again, we'll go over that chart and a few others as well to play catch up. But here's the AMD news. Obviously came out yesterday with them reaching a deal where Sam Altman's company might take a 10% stake in the chip maker, get an opportunity that is. OpenAI will deploy up to 6 gigawatts, blah, blah, blah. And here's a video I want you to listen to very carefully about this deal, because it is an interesting one to say the least.
So Andrew, OpenAI is teaming up with AMD in a partnership that could give Sam Altman's startup a 10% stake in the chip maker virtually for free. Now, the rollout starts with 1 gigawatt of AMD's Instinct GPUs in 2026 and expands to 6 gigawatts across multiple hardware generations. Now, as part of this arrangement, OpenAI receives up to 160 million shares of AMD stock through performance-based warrants priced at just 1 cent each, compared to AMD's current trading price of around $165. Now, those shares vest as deployments grow, but both companies are also billing it as a massive win for AMD, which has trailed NVIDIA for years. It's also a clear sign that OpenAI doesn't want to be dependent on just one supplier. This is all about OpenAI locking in the supply chain that it needs to scale, and it comes within weeks of cutting a $100 billion deal with NVIDIA. It's also in talks to build custom chips with Broadcom, and comes as OpenAI plans a $1 trillion plus infrastructure build out across chips, data centers, and custom silicone. It is a tightly wound circular economy, and one that analysts fear could face real strain if any link in the chain starts to weaken. So let's start with how it's going to pay for it. The $100 billion worth of equity that NVIDIA is putting into OpenAI is also pegged to certain build out milestones being met. It's rolling out in $10 billion increments per gigawatt. Now, that goes into a pool of cash that OpenAI can spend on anything that it wants to. It is not contractually obligated to give it all back to NVIDIA. So yes, ostensibly that could also go to AMD to buy their chips. And yes, they are buying the chips from AMD directly, which is separate to this equity arrangement. Now, in terms of how they're going to pay for it, yes, there is a huge shortfall. Each gigawatt is roughly $50 billion. So $35 billion typically goes to the chip maker. The other $15 billion is roughly what the data center build out requires. Now, to pay for that, I was talking to Sarah Fryer 2 weeks ago, and she says that equity is too expensive to hand out, so it's all about debt. And so that $100 billion investment from NVIDIA gives them leverage at the bank because they're not cash flow positive. And Andrew, your entire team has talked to Sam Altman about the fact that he has no intention of becoming profitable anytime soon because his goals are so ambitious, and that requires additional compute build out.
So, of course, that has led to these memes coming out. And again, it's meant to make you laugh and stuff. And it's, not exactly how it works, but it's what it seems is going on behind the scenes here.
Speaking of money, how about the $20 you owe me?
Oh, yeah? Well, I only got 10, so here's 10 and I owe you 10.
Thanks.
Hey, Mo, you owe me 20.
Well, here's 10 and I'll owe you 10.
You owe me 20. Here's 10, I owe you 10. Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you. Good, now we're all even.
And then, of course, for the short sellers, say the line, Bart, and then you scroll down to the short seller. Who's Bart? We're partnering with OpenAI, which every time just sends these, stocks to the moon. And, of course, everybody's celebrating on the run up, of course. And, yes, I was celebrating. Members were celebrating. Everybody was celebrating their calls. We definitely enjoyed it. But one interesting thing I did not know about OpenAI, and let me know if you did, was that it's owned by a nonprofit. So OpenAI as a nonprofit is now the most powerful tax shield corporation on earth. $100 billion from NVIDIA, up to 10% of AMD, $500 billion Stargate build out, $500 billion valuation. A Delaware engineered hybrid laundering profit through philanthropy, where a 501c3 parent governs a $1 trillion LP that owns the AGI, stack, vetoes investor control, and reinvest capped returns tax-free into compute expansion. It isn't the company anymore. It's a sovereign AI state with a nonprofit halo. This is what somebody wrote, and I'm not going to blast them out or anything, but I thought it was interesting. And so, and when we look this up, you can see while OpenAI is initially founded as a nonprofit in 2015 to ensure AI benefits humanity, it later created a for-profit arm to raise necessary capital. In 2025, OpenAI restructured its for-profit arm into PBC under the nonprofit, with the nonprofit remaining in control and a major shareholder to support its long-term mission. And it really does seem like, you know, I'm saying, hey man, I'll buy, let's say you're selling oranges, I'll buy you oranges, but I don't have the $1,000 to buy the oranges. So what I need you to do is, I got this company over here, can you invest in that? And then I'll just kind of take that money and I'll buy your oranges, and I'll take that money and go buy this other oranges, and then they'll invest in this, and then they'll give this to you. And so it does seem that way. But again, we had the same thing going on with NVIDIA back in the days. I did a video on that with BlackRock, some other company, and NVIDIA was giving them money to invest in the company. They were turning right back around buying NVIDIA chips. But guess where the stock went? Through the moon. Okay, the market doesn't care where the money comes from at this point in time. And OpenAI is not even a publicly traded company yet, so we know there's shenanigans. It's the way it works. But all they see is money. What? Ooh, news. Whew, see you later. And you know, with AMD, you can see it didn't set a new all-time high. It's set right there, and we'll look at extended hours to show you what I'm talking about. It hit it to the penny and got rejected. So again, this will be a great double top or not. We'll see if it can get above that and close above it. Obviously, the sky's the limit for AMD, but it is a huge gap up. I mean, it was up like 36% at one time, and I love the ride up if you're in options, but I just hate having that like gigantic gap down below. And you can see right there to the penny, it hits in extended hours the previous all-time high, which is pretty far back over there, you can see. And so, you know, if it goes up any higher, you'll get 235.04, 241 is your next level up. If you can get that, again, coming down, what you're looking at is the 50% gap refill. Okay, you'll see this a lot. You saw it on Oracle. I'll show it to you. You'll get 50% of the gap fill, which also just coincide with the level of what used to be resistance for this thing. And so what you want to see here is this going to set up and go, okay, here's a lower high, and then start coming back down, especially if we show any form of weakness whatsoever, and then bounce from the 50% refill and start moving higher. Okay, that's what you're looking at. Now Tesla right here, revealed its cheaper Model Y, so I guess that little spinny thing was a hubcap, wheel, whatever you want to call it. I saw all kinds of stuff about HVACs and everything else in the comments, so I appreciate you guys putting that in there. Yeah, but you can see they also announced the new Model 3 standard as well on top of it. So you got the Model Y standard going for $39,990 with rear-wheel drive, and then the Model 3 standard comes at a cheaper rate of $36,990 after the whole EV tax credit. Immediately, of course, the sell news event, which I think it always is with Tesla, I guess, it dropped immediately about 4%. So it gave back all its gains for the day and stuff. Came down in this gap, finished below the trend line, all that fun stuff. So I guess no surprise there. It's good to know what it was. And again, so they're introducing a new car for a company that's not a car company. But anyway, so we see this right here. We're going to see if we get a low and low on top of it. If we're finally going to see that 398.402 challenge right there and get to fill that gap. And that's what we got to find out. But the truth is, it's still just sitting in that range right there. I mean, again, we broke out, thought we were good to go, came back down inside of it. And so let's just see if it's going to hold this zone again between 419 and 433. If it doesn't, I think we finally do get that gap fill at that 400-ish level right there. And there's plenty of liquidity down below to be had. But again, every time you count Tesla out, it makes short sellers cry. Now, remember we talked about PayPal? I guess it was a couple weekends ago when you guys asked about it. And so this trend line goes back 4 years. It's been an absolute total disappointment for investors, heartbreaking, and just crushing their hopes and dreams. I'm just joking, but seriously, today finally you get a break above the 200, which coincides with that trend line. So that's what we talked about. Again, you leave behind this gap. Immediately it does what PayPal always does. It gives back all the gains. And so we're coming back down, trying to see if it can hold this area. And like I was telling members in the video today, look, you're just trying to see it's okay to fill a gap, you know, but can it finally get a bounce? But it has to sustain a couple daily closes above that 200 and the trend line, but especially the 200 moving average. Like, that is key. And for a stock that's just failed so many times, I don't think there's a lot of hope in it for people. But the truth is, like I was telling them, the upside is so great, risk reward, it doesn't make any sense not to take it, and see what happens. I mean, again, if it comes down to that gap and it doesn't stop, and especially the thing about this one too is if market, we see any kind of market weakness, with 3%, 5%, this stock's not strong enough to hold up, I don't believe, at all. And it has to have the sector go with it. And the whole sector turned yesterday. And then as soon as some of those fintechs started going red, PayPal turned right back down with it. Okay, I believe SoFi ended up green today, if I'm not mistaken. And so did PayPal, obviously, because it gapped up today. But, you just got to hold this area. It's okay to come up and come back down and hit these fib levels along with this gap and all that stuff, but you got to see something like this. And so that's what I would be looking for if I was doing PayPal right here. And so, hopefully into the upside, I mean, you're looking at 77 on the first gap fill. Let's get there first. But above, you're talking anywhere from 89, 96 in the next levels. And when you pull up your momentum indicators, you need on the daily that MACD to get above that zero line. If that can happen, then you're cooking with Crisco, okay? Because on the weekly and the daily, the RSI is above 50. But again, on the MACD, you just don't have it above the zero line right there. So if you can get that, that's when it's had its biggest moves in the past, okay? Now I'm looking at BM&R. We'll give some updates here. You can see big engulfing candle right there. And obviously it came up, took out that high right there, and everybody's like, and their mother's like, hey, if we can close above 65 today, then you got to run, right? You can see right there, this shelf right there. If you can hold this area up here, you can start running up in that little box area right there, okay? And start making a run towards 72, then 75, then 90, if Ethereum will continue to go. But as soon as Ethereum rolled over today, so did BM&R if it took that level right there. So, we'll see, putting that gap on here, putting your fibs, putting this trend line. It's in the discount already. We'll see if it's going to hold this trend line. Maybe want to fill some of that gap to get a bounce. So just watch, crypto, which has been going really well in the last few days here. CoreWeave finally, I think I posted this a week ago for the members, filled this gap. It was much later than I thought it would be on the daily here, but it finally came down and did it. It's sitting right there at the golden pocket. Does it get a bounce from here? That's the question. It held up the rest of the day once it did it. If that does not hold, then you have to watch for those anchored VWAPs, which start around 122 right there. And so again, we'll put a trend line on this one, you can see. So we'll see if that's going to hold now that the gap is filled on this one. This is your data center play and stuff. There's a lot of companies that used to be crypto mining companies that are also getting into the data center play and everything like that, like Irene and some others as well. And so, just keep this one in mind. If it breaks that trend line, we're coming down to that anchor VWAP, and those need to hold, okay, as I've showed you on many other stocks. And if they do, then maybe we finally get a run up to 148 right there and take that level out. Now, Meta here, this one's an interesting one because it's trying to hold right here. You can see right there, it needs to get through 717, close above it to get in that gap to move higher. But if it breaks that previous low right there, say hello to your 200 moving average, all right? 667 somewhere in there is what you're looking at. It's also a weekly imbalance on top of it. And I'm trying to think, we broke through the 200 over there in April, obviously, but besides that, it ain't touched a 200 too often. And so it really needs to hold where it's at now, or it will be revisiting that one. Amazon, another Mag 8 laggard here. It has not retested that 200. It keeps testing that 0.79 fib around 217 right there. I believe 3 times now. But it's just consolidating for its next move. And I said, like I said, I'm not, and like I said, until it gets above that trend line, all that's for nothing. Like, you need to break above that trend line, start heading up into these imbalances, mitigating that right there. And so watch to see if we get more weakness as it keeps pounding that level. If you finally get your 200 retest right there around 214, 215, if we can finally start to move up, obviously 225, 228 are your next levels. Now looking at SPY here, we already talked about this, but what's funny is you're sitting there, I believe on my chart, it's 157 days before we've touched the 50 moving average. I believe is the third most since 1990. And so, eventually it's going to happen. And the question is, I've told you what I'm looking out for. If we break that previous all-time high, which we're trying to retest now, then, you're going to start falling out. You're going to start coming down, then get a bounce to fill out a right shoulder. That's really the big question here is what I'm looking for on this, because these are like topping patterns. And when I say topping patterns, like, where do I get that from? I just go back to 2021 and look at this one. And I'm not saying for none of this mess right here. I'm not saying for a 20% crash. Nothing like that. I'm just talking about 3 to 5% pullback to the 50. That's all I'm talking about. Not this. Because you see I closed this to the 50 right there, and we're not there right now. So that's what I'm talking about. And just always being on the lookout for those levels and what to look out for. So, that's, just managing risk, things like nature. So that's what I'm looking for on that one. And one thing to watch out for is the VIX, because if you look at the VIX, out of the last 7 days, it's had 6 green days. It's finally breaking above 17. Again, been super compressed, but just quietly kind of climbing here. And all it takes is one news headline, one something for the market to manipulate that VIX up to a big spike. And then, of course, what happens to the SPY? It goes the opposite way. So, again, we'll see, because it's funny watching the market, be green. The VIX is being green. You're like, okay, which one's telling the truth here? So that's what we're going to see on this one. The QQQ, it's the opposite, where it's had 2 rejections of that trend line, which goes pretty far back. And so we'll see. It's trying to test this level here, but will it come down? Because it looks all the same, right? You're starting to see this like this left shoulder, looks like a head. Maybe we form a right shoulder, and we'll see if this trend line breaks. Because in all the Mag 8s, there's quite a few, and we're starting to see trend lines like this get broken, and then you get the sell down. Okay, now we need, in order for that to happen, any kind of real sell down, you need the Mag 8 to join. Okay, so if Meta bounces, Amazon bounces, and all the rest of them hold up, well, you can forget about it. I know they're buying puts on like Microsoft and stuff, and if Microsoft goes and NVIDIA goes, then you get it. But, until you start breaking those levels, I'm not even worried about that right now. IWM looks the exact same way, except this one broke that trend line we talked about. Then gets a huge surge up, comes down, fills this gap. So you're in a bounce point, and so let's see what happens. But again, look over to the left shoulder, middle, head. And so we'll see if this forms or not. I mean, most of these, well, not say most of them, but quite a few of them fail, as you've seen in the past. So with all this euphoric buying and stuff, it's hard to get a pullback, as you've seen. So anyway, now Wednesday, don't worry about any earnings. All we have is construction spending for data, crude oil inventories, 10-year bond auction, and FOMC meeting minutes, which of course are old, but the market likes to react off of them anyway. So anyway, hope you guys got some out of it. Glad to be back. Please hit the like, subscribe button on your way out. Think about signing up membership. Listen to McDonald's combo at $7.99. That's everything you get with it. Just hit the first link in the bottom of the description, and I will see you guys tomorrow.